Yeah, here.
Mitch is here now? That's right, he has to do that here.
That's the way down. You don't find your money, right?
We just want to put on the record this question. Did you hear anything that Elon Abraham said at the scene of the arrest?
No.
Okay. All right, so that ends that issue, Your Honor. The only thing I'm going to ask you about is the plea, and I'm going to serve.
Or gestures.
What?
Or gestures.
What?
Head nods.
Head nod.
Like indicating, you know, like words or deeds.
You hear what he said?
Just like that.
Because he doesn't want to yell it out. No, it's it. Yeah, before we begin, there are two dates evidently that were off that I supposedly knew about that I forgot to include. And that's July, half a day, July 20th, and all of the 21st. And then we're off the succeeding 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We're only going to work on July 20th, half a day, and we're off on the 21st.
Is that a Friday?
Yes.
Right, and then,
Evidently, just forgot to include them when we went through all the dates.
I never heard those dates before, right?
But those are dates.
No, I understand. And then we work the whole next week.
No,
and
we're,
we-
no,
and
I
off
think we're off the
No,
next.
we're off next
2 weeks. So we're almost off, for almost 3 weeks.
I thought we work up until the 28th.
No.
Oh, no. I'm gone the week of the 23rd.
Starting that week, we're off until August 8th.
Correct, but we're going to actually start in the afternoon of the 20th.
The 24th.
We're going to start in the afternoon for what?
20th.
Yeah.
Morning of the 20th.
All right, jury, please.
21st we're off.
On high tech, so everybody should be able to very easily hear. Mr. Sachs.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Watts, I think we left off at the motel where you were taken into custody, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And what were you were charged, correct?
that's correct.
What were you charged with?
Accessory,
Accessory to what?
first degree,
Okay. First degree murder?
that's correct.
And what happened? What did you do? Did you plead guilty?
Yes.
And what was your sentence?
5 years probation.
Let me show you State's Exhibit marked 8E for identification. Do you recognize who this is?
Yes.
Who is that?
My son.
Okay. This time, Your Honor, I'd like to offer 8E. This is your son. All right. Were you present when DNA in his mouth was swabbed?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Offer 8E. That's all the questions I have.
What's marked as 8E for identification will come in as states 236. Mr. Williams?
Good morning, Mr. Watts.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to take you through a couple of things, okay? If at any time you don't understand my question, or it's not clear, just ask me to explain or repeat. Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now, you rented an apartment, correct?
Well, yes.
Yes. And that is State's Exhibit 219. Let me show you. You identified this as, is this, how do we do that for that? Can I get it smaller than that? Larger than that? Let me show you the last page. Date that you signed on these. You see your signature on that document up at the top?
That's correct.
See your signature here? Yeah. Oh. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Do you see your signature up there?
Yes,
That's your signature, right?
that's correct.
And you leased the apartment on or about May 9th of 2006.
That's correct.
So does that refresh your memory as to about the time that you leased the apartment?
That's correct.
And that was apartment 205, correct?
That's correct.
And you said in your, I believe in response to Mr. Sand's questions, that Mr. Forbes and Mr. Delancey had been living with you for a couple of months at the other location,
That's
right?
correct.
So that would take us maybe into March of 2006, when Mr. Delancey came to stay with you and Mr. Forbes at the location off of Hiatus Road, right?
It was,
Excuse me?
it's about 2 months, yes, it will probably be that.
So maybe late March, early March?
It could be.
Now, did Mr. Forbes, not Forbes, Mr. Ingraham, did he have another phone number at one time? Did you call him at? Let me give you a number, see if you remember. 954-696-2693.
I don't recall that number.
Hmm?
I don't recall that number.
Did you ever recall Mr. Ingram using the name Keith Smith? Okay. But you do recall them coming to stay with you probably in March of 2006.
It was about 2 months, so I'm not certain on the date that they came.
Well, 2 months
Well,
would be March,
it
right?
could be a little bit more, I'm not sure.
Okay, okay. I'll follow with that. So but it's clear that when you went to, that at the point in time you executed that lease, that Mr. Delancey was going to be staying there, correct?
When it comes to find out, the gentleman was going to stay there, yes.
Yes. So at the point you signed your name on the lease, you knew that you weren't going to be living there, right?
Well, yes.
Okay. And then you were leasing this apartment so that Mr. Delancey would have a place to stay.
Well, yes, it was going to stay there.
Okay. Now, I want to take you, and then you said that at some point in time, showing you State's Exhibit 220, you identified that as the floor plan of the apartment 205?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know which bedroom Andre Delancey stayed in or occupied at that apartment?
Would be the master or will be staying.
Okay. Mr. Delancey stayed in the master?
That's correct.
Okay. So when you came in, I think you said it was like September, maybe October, you stayed for a couple of weeks because the air conditioning was off in the other place?
That's correct.
So then he would have vacated the master bedroom,
That's correct.
gave it up so that you, Mr. Ingram, and your son could have a place to stay, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and you stayed there, I think you said, for a couple of weeks, right?
So, well, yes.
Okay. Now, let's go back to November 11th, Saturday, November 11th, 2006. Okay? If I recall what your testimony was, you were working at Brandsmart, correct?
That's correct.
And you worked the night shift on that Saturday.
That's correct.
And Brandsmart closed, what, 9 p.m.?
9:30.
9:30.
That's correct.
And so after you got off from work, you went to the apartment 205
That's correct.
to pick up the two children.
That's correct.
So you would have gotten there sometime, you said you were working at the Brandsmart on Griffin Road.
Yes.
And so it would take you, what, 30 minutes or so to get home?
Yes.
Or to get to Tamarack, apartment 205?
Yes, about that.
So you went there and you picked up the two children, right?
That's correct.
And then from there you went straight home?
That's correct.
Kids, okay. So at that point in time, you figured you were in for the evening, right?
That's correct.
Then you got a phone call.
Yes.
Now, your phone number at that point in time was 954-625-5161.
That's correct.
So the last four digits of your phone number were 5161, right? And Mr. Ingram's phone was 954-274-1134.
Yes.
Okay, so the last digits of his phone number were 1134.
That's correct.
Now, the state has introduced into evidence State's Exhibit 223, consisting of 2 pages. I want to go over some items with you. All right. You said you got a call, you believe, sometime after 11 p.m. on the 12th. Is that correct? Okay. Now, the phone records seem to indicate, referring to Exhibit 223, there's a call,
Mr. Williams, you say the 12th or the 11th?
the 11th, I'm sorry,
Okay.
the 11th. There's a call that looks like 2319. See there? And it looks like the call is 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Would that be when Mr. Ingram called you, the first time he spoke to you after you had picked up the kids? See right here? See right here?
Okay.
Excuse me?
I'm trying to see. 1 second.
Well, you can get up. You see this call right here?
Yes.
2 minutes and 3 seconds, 2 minutes and 2 seconds. That's at 23:19 military time, so that would be 11:19 p.m. Would that refresh your memory? That would be about the first time that Mr. Ingram called you after you picked up the children?
That's correct.
Okay. Then you said, nothing stated, because I'm going to go somewhere with you. And then you said, at some point in time, there was a second call from you, right? You see this call down here? At 38-second phone call?
The 3 minutes?
3 minutes, 38 seconds. It's at 11:44 p.m. Military time would be 23:44. See that call right there? Your phone to his phone?
Okay.
What did you talk about during that 3 minute, 38-second phone call?
I mean, that could be when I went to the corner store. I'm not certain on where exactly my phone called him. I don't
Well, I
recall.
don't think that you said you went to the first call you said you had with him was about going to the apartment, right?
Okay, are we past the time from when he had called me to go to the corner store?
No.
I would object to Mr. Williams testifying.
Well, we'll get to it in a minute.
Just an objection to Mr. Williams telling the witness.
Don't tell the witness what to say, please.
You see this call down here at just before midnight, an 8 minute and 35-second phone call?
Can you point on the element?
Yes, please.
Mr. Williams, the jury, well, I don't know about the jury, I can't see well with that. Can we?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if it's red, it's not showing up on the screen so well.
Well, I didn't make it.
I know, I'm just saying.
Sticker like
Oh,
There we go. Thank you.
No, that's good.
But can you slide it over?
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let's go back. Go back up here. See this call right here? Right there? That call's at 11:19 p.m. That's Mr. Ingram's phone number right there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. That's the first call that you receive after you pick up the kids. That's at
Objection.
11:19.
I'm gonna object.
Object,
This
because
is in fact not in evidence. Mr. Williams testifying.
Okay,
stop testifying.
all right, Ms. Watts, you see any other calls to Mr. Ingram's phone before that one? This is your phone records. See any others?
This is one that I was talking to when he's driving home.
Okay. Are you talking to him?
The time?
Okay. It's at 22:39. Okay, right?
That's correct.
And it's a 27-minute phone call, correct?
Yes.
And you're talking to telephone number 954-245-6147. Whose phone number is that? Is that Mr. Ingram's?
No,
Okay, so who were you talking to then?
one of my friends.
Okay. So then the next call after that is at
Excuse me?
at,
10:16.
No.
I mean, 11.
11:16.
That's correct.
It looks like a 26-second phone call, right? Here's the number, the time. And then the next call, where there's a 24-second phone call. And then there's a 2-minute and 3-second phone call, correct? And that's at 11:19. See that? See what I'm pointing to?
Yes.
Okay. And that's between your phone and Mr. Ingram's phone, right?
Okay.
Not your friend's phone up here that you had a long conversation with, right? You talked to your friend when you were driving from Brandsmart to Mr. Ingram's place, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Then you pick up the kids, correct? After you finish talking with your friend, right?
No, I was still on the road with the children.
Excuse me, I can't.
I was still on the road with the kids. This is going to my house around that time.
This time, when you're, the 27-minute phone call is when you're going to your house?
I believe that's when I pulled up to my house already. I was already in the house.
Well, does it take you 27 minutes to go from from apartment 205 to where you lived off of Hiatus Road? Isn't it more logical that it took you 27 minutes to drive from Brandsmart and Griffin Road to the apartment 205?
It's about that time.
Okay, so now we're back, just trying to get the phones. Then you have a phone call, a 2-minute and 3-second phone call with Mr. Ingram at 11:19 p.m., correct? See the record?
I see it, yes.
Okay. Then you have a 1-minute and 17-second conversation with Mr. Ingram at 11:29. See there? See right there? You see that, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a yes? You have a phone call with him at that time?
I remember him calling, but
Okay. And then after those calls, at some point you were told to go to apartment 205 and pick up some items, right?
that's correct.
Okay, and then you said on your direct examination, when you got near the apartment, you had a conversation with him, correct?
That's correct.
And was that because you saw the police activity there?
Yes.
Okay. And what were you wanting to find out from him regarding the police activity?
If there's something that he wanted to tell me before going through the
Okay.
doors.
Okay. So now, let's see, right here at 1:06. See this call, this 8-minute call right here. See this call right in here?
Yes.
There's an 8-minute call. And that's at 6 minutes after midnight, right?
That's correct.
Okay. What were you talking to him for 8 minutes and 35 seconds, 6 minutes after midnight?
I asked if there's anything that, I believe that's the call when I had advised if there's anything before going through the doors.
Okay.
And he was just on the phone with me. I don't recall
Okay.
what conversation.
But that would be, that call, that 8-minute and 35-second phone call is reflected on State's Exhibit 23. That would be at or about the time you're at the apartment, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's when you said you went in and picked up the package.
That's correct.
And the package you picked up, was Mr. Delancey's passport, correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Ingram asked you to pick that up.
That's correct.
And it would also contain Mr. Ford's passport.
Yes.
But it did not contain Mr. Ingram's passport.
That is correct.
Okay. Then you went from there to where? Now, you're with this guy, what is his name, Mr. Gale?
Yes, yes,
Mr. Gale has driven you over there. So then you've got these items in your purse or whatever, right?
that's correct.
And then you went back to where your house?
That's correct.
Mr. Gale took you back to your house.
Yes,
And then that's when you picked up, that's when you obtained Mr. Ingram's passport?
no, the next morning is when I looked at exactly what it was in the plastic bag.
No, it's Mr. Ingram's passport. Mr. Ingram's passport wasn't in that plastic bag.
That is correct.
Okay, so you went back to your house,
Yes.
and is that when you picked up Mr. Ingram's passport?
Well, when I got to the house, no, the next day.
Early the next morning?
That is correct.
Okay, so from there, so when you get back to the house, then at this point in time, you've already given Mr. Ingram when you got back to your house, you do not have your car, correct?
That is correct.
Now, when did you get the car?
The next morning.
The next morning?
That's correct.
Because before you go to the apartment, you've already given Mr. Ingram back the black marquee, correct?
Yes, he had took the car.
Yes. Okay. Then you go to the apartment, trying to get the chronology right.
Yes, the neighbor is the one who took me to the
Okay.
apartment.
So at this point in time, you knew that Mr. Ingram had access to two cars, right? The black marquee and the Cadillac.
To my knowledge, the Cadillac wasn't working.
Okay, but what I'm asking you is in November, that was an inartful question on my part. In November of 2006, Mr. Ingram had access or use of two potential cars, the Cadillac and the Marquis.
Yes, he could, yes.
You didn't know him to have any other cars, right?
No,
Okay. And Mr. Delancey didn't have any car, did he, that you were aware of?
no,
Mr. Delancey depended on Mr. Ingram for transportation.
yes,
Okay. So, at that point in time, you're at home, and then you're at home till what, about 4 o'clock or so in the morning you get a call?
I believe so.
Well, when is it that Keisha comes? Does she come in the daylight, or is it daylight out, or is it still dark?
When she comes early morning.
Early morning?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and does Mr. Ingram call you and advise you that Keisha's coming?
Yes,
I'm not going to be on the home shop with demonstrating products. Okay. Let's, here's at 6:37 a.m. Right here. There's a call. See that call right there? Red, 6:37 a.m. And it's Mr. Ingram's phone. See it over there? See it? You see what I'm pointing to, Ms. Watts?
yes,
Okay. You have a 1 minute 17 second or 17 second telephone call with Mr. Ingram at about 6:30 in the morning, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So that would be would that be the time that he's telling you that Keisha's going to pick you up?
I'm not certain if that was the time or if he called me again, but
Well, looking on this chart, do you see any other calls that would correspond with you and Mr. Ingram before Keisha came and picked you up?
then that would be the time.
Okay. And then Keisha picks you up,
That's correct.
correct? And then she takes you to where the Mercury Marquis is, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, so we've got you picking, what do you do with the car once you pick it up?
I went to the store and then I went to my parents' house.
Okay. So at that point in time, if you pick the car up, say 8 o'clock or so in the morning, and that's Sunday morning, right? At that point in time, you don't know, you've got no plans at that point to do anything else regarding Mr. Ingram or Mr. Ford or Mr. Delancey, correct?
No.
Okay. It's not until you receive another call from Mr. Ingram, correct?
Yes.
And that's the call that brings you to the Roadway Inn Motel, correct?
No, he called me before that saying he wanted to see me.
Saying he wanted to see you.
Yes.
And at that call, did you discuss where he wanted to see you at?
No.
Okay. And then, when is it that you learn that he wants you to come to the Roadway Inn Motel?
I believe it's sometime in the afternoon, I think it is.
Would it be sometime after 1 p.m.?
It could be.
Because obviously they have to check into the motel before they can tell you where to go, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I mean, that would make logical sense. So it's going to be, the call to tell you to come to the Roadway Motel is going to be at some point after they've checked into the, logically, after they've checked into the motel. Fair statement?
Okay.
And then you get a call from Mr. Ingram to come to the motel.
Yes.
Okay. Is that at the point in time that you gather up Mr. Ingram's passport?
No.
You already put it in your purse earlier than that?
Earlier, before I was leaving the house, yes.
Before you were leaving the house to go to the Roadway Inn?
No, to go on the road.
Go on the road to where?
I was, after not able to get with my parents, I tried to go by a friend's house.
Right.
And I already packed up everything, and I went to the store to get them something to eat, and I already, my children, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of ladies and
So I already did the bag. He asked for something, and I put them all in the bag.
what did you put in there?
He asked for shorts and a shirt.
So there was a change of clothes that was brought to the motel?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know how many T-shirts and stuff you brought?
If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if it was 2 or, I'm not certain if it's 1.
Was if there was one or more, was one of the shirts white?
A white t-shirt, yes.
White T-shirt. Okay. And so at that point in time, you've got a change of clothes, possibly 1 or 2 T-shirts, correct?
Mhm.
And you've got each of the men's passport.
Yes, when I came to find out that it was passports, I put Devon's passport inside the bag.
Oh, okay, so when you learned that you had Ford's and Delancey's passport, then you thought upon yourself to add Devon's to that, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. And so you go there, and Mr. Satz went through how you found him at the motel, and so you go in the rooms, right?
That's correct.
So you have your 2 children, and you're in the motel room with Mr. Ingram, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Delancey.
Yes.
Does Mr. Delancey say anything to you at that point in time? He's quiet.
Yes.
In the times that you've been around Mr. Delancey, is he a talkative person?
I never communicated or really talked to them. I mean, he was more helpful, was taking out the garbage and stuff in the house, but I never had a conversation with him really.
Okay, so you never really had any conversation with Mr. Delancey, basically in your life, right?
No.
Other than
Hi.
hi, bye, and take out the garbage.
Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Delancey said nothing to you in that motel room?
No.
But at some point in time, Mr. Delancey and Mr. Ingram wanted to separate themselves from Mr. Forbes, correct?
No, not that I know of.
Well, did you just say on direct examination that they left together for 10 or 15 minutes?
When they went in the car, I don't know why they went outside.
Okay, well, we know that they physically left Mr. Forbes' presence, right? Because they drove away together.
Objection, so Sue's back's not dead, it's speculation, she didn't know where they went.
That's what you said.
Didn't you say on direct examination that they drove away in the car?
Objection, Sue's back's
They
not
went
dead.
outside, I was in the room with the kids, and
Okay, well, let me ask you another way. When you went out to get in your car, to leave with Mr. Ingram and the kids,
that's correct.
was the car in the same place?
No,
So logically, then, the car was moved after Mr. Ingram and Mr. Delancey went outside, correct?
correct.
Okay. And they were gone for about 10 or 15 minutes?
I think about 10 minutes or so. I'm not certain on how long it was. It wasn't that long.
Okay. And then when they came back, Mr. Ingram gave you kind of the high side, let's go.
Yes,
At that point in time, then you left, and at that point in time, you and Mr. Ingram were taken into custody, correct?
that's correct.
Thank you.
Hold up.
If I'm need a little bit to get set up, if I could.
Sure. Danny, you guys know the way.
that you met Mr. Ingram, I guess, was it in 2000? When did you meet Mr. Ingram?
In 2003.
2003, okay. And at that time, you had one child, and then within a year, you had another child by Mr. Ingram, correct?
We have one child for them.
No, I said, when you met him, you already had a child.
Oh, yes,
That was your daughter.
that's
You call
correct.
her Kiki, right?
That's correct.
And then a year after meeting Mr. Ingram, you have a child with Mr. Ingram, correct?
That's correct.
And that's Eloy Jr., and he was born in 2004.
That's correct.
And then you told Mr. Satz that you and Mr. Ingram, well, strike that, Mr. Satz showed you that lease. This lease states 219 in evidence that you looked at it. I guess it's signed on May 9th. That's the lease that you signed, correct?
That's correct.
And that was pursuant to a discussion that you had with Mr. Ingram that you wanted to have your own apartment. You didn't want to live at that house in Sunrise, correct?
Well, yes, we discussed before that I wanted to start off new.
You wanted to start off new.
Well, yes, with
Right.
them.
And by starting off new, for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what that means is that house was owned by his mother, correct?
That's correct.
So you were living in his mother's house, and she would come visit sometimes, correct?
Yes.
Right. And you wanted to, let's start our own life, let's get our own apartment, and that's what led to searching out that apartment 205, correct?
When he made it, yes,
I mean, that's what led to you
That's what I
looking
thought.
for another, that's what you thought, looking for another apartment that you and Mr. Ingram can live in, kind of be on your own, like you say, a fresh new start, correct?
when we didn't get the apartment from when he had me go to a realtor, I thought that's what our discussion was supposed to be.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I agreed, okay. But now, I think Mr. Satz asked you later on, when he showed you all those bills, if you were paying any of the bills, like the newspaper bill or the FPL bill, you said you were not, right?
That's correct.
And didn't you also tell the jury that you weren't paying any of the rent at 205?
That's correct.
Did you ever make a statement different than that?
No.
Okay, so, after this incident occurred, just, I don't know, it sounds really loud to me, I don't bother anyone else, just a minute.
Just you.
Get your answer.
What, okay. After this incident occurs, the police, you gave a number of statements to the police, correct?
That is correct.
Police questioned you, detectives in an interview room, correct?
That is correct.
At the substation, I'm sorry, the public safety building, correct?
Yes, sir.
You remember this particular statement was on November 13th, 2006. I believe it begins at 4:13. They don't ever put afternoon or morning. It says it begins at 4:13. When Detective Duggan comes in and questions you. Remember that?
I remember Mr. Duggan, yes.
Okay. And you remember being at the public safety building in an interrogation room, being questioned by Detective Duggan? So the day after, the 12th, and it would have been a 3-hour interrogation, correct? It went from 4 in the morning till 7, or 4 till 7. Do you remember whether it was early morning or it was in the afternoon?
On the following of November 11th,
The first time you were interrogated in the interrogation room for a lengthy time, do you remember if it was morning or afternoon? Like in the middle of the night, 4:13 a.m., or was it 4? Do you know?
4 to probably about late night, and then I returned back the next day.
Okay, you think it's morning, okay. So with respect to you saying you never paid anything for the apartment, page 13, counsel, and let me just show you that, this what else. Let me show you the whole thing, just so you can assure yourself this is yours. If you want, I mean, to satisfy yourself that this says what it says, but if you want to look at it, I'm going to ask the witness to look at page 13. I think it's bottom of 12, top of 13. Sorry, excuse. I'm sorry, it's page 12. The question would begin on line 14. But read whatever you want, but what I'm asking you to read now to yourself begins on line 14 on page 12 and ends on line 13 on page 13. If you just read that to yourself, please. Did you get a chance to read that? So do you remember these questions and answers?
If it's refreshing.
No, I'm not refreshing her memory, I'm impeaching her. I just asked her and she said, no, she never said anything different. I'm not refreshing her memory at all. So you remember this question and answer, line 14, question, question. Okay. For no other reason, just to do it for him. Answer. I mean, he asked me to lease once I found out we was going to do it together. He says he wanted it for the gentleman instead to stay there because he didn't want him to stay by the house. That's what happened.
Right.
I'm sorry. Detective Douglas. I see. Okay. Now, do you actually make that mortgage payment yourself? Answer. I had. They gave me cash one time, or he gave me cash to go make the payment. Question. Who's he? Answer. Devon. Question. Okay. Answer. I made the money order and mailed it off. And then the other time I wrote, we did half and half. I wrote a check and we had used the Nexus money, the cash and money together. Question. Nexus money, what is that? Answer. I mean it was cash and money. Douglas, I see. This was. Or check and money. Remember saying that?
No, I can't recall, because I never made a payment to the apartment.
So when you told the detective regarding that, that was not true?
I can't recall at that time. I don't know if, I mean, it's there in the paper, but I
I know.
don't.
Well, why do you think you would have said that if it was true?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. All right. But now with respect to your house you were living in, you never paid any bills there either, did you?
Not really.
No, in other words, his mother paid the bills for that house, or Devon did. Either he or his mother paid the bills, correct?
That's correct.
Matter of fact, it was his mother, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Right. So for Ms. Watts, when Mr. Satz asked you, did you pay any bills, you've never paid any bills in your relationship with Mr. Ingles, correct?
I paid sometime the light bill or,
I apologize. You've never paid the mortgage payment or rent payment at 11065, nor did you ever pay the rent payment at the apartment.
That is correct.
Okay, so you, in other words, you signed the lease, but you never had intent to pay that. You knew Mr. Ingram would be paying that, or whoever, but not you. You didn't think you had to pay
No, I wouldn't.
that. Okay. And yet you told Detective Duggan, I was paying it, Mr. Ingram, $205.
I don't know or remember.
Okay. And that was, just for the record, that was a sworn statement, right? The police officer explained to you that you swear to you tell the truth, right?
That's correct.
So now, I think you said, so then, what happens is, those phone calls that come at 11 o'clock is for, some phone call, whatever it is, whether 11 or soon thereafter, is for, you say, Mr. Ingram calls me and tells me to bring the car to the corner store, correct?
That's correct.
And,
Excuse me, did you say what's that?
No, that's correct.
right. And you told the folks on the jury that you drove the car over there, and when you did, you dropped the car, or you stopped the car, and then he taps on the window, and you look up, and he sort of grabs you by the arm and takes you out and says to you to walk over, right?
That's correct.
So, never make a statement different than that. I'm sorry?
No.
Okay. Same statement, counsel. Again, same sworn statement you gave to the police. Page 21, and again, to set the groundwork of this. Clearly, at this point, you know Mr. Ingram's in custody, charged with murdering a police officer, correct?
It came to my knowledge, yes.
Yeah, I'm saying, by the time you're giving a statement on November 13th, which would be, I guess, Tuesday, or Monday, or Tuesday, you already know that he's in custody, and he's charged with homicide of a police officer in the county. This is very serious, right?
Yes.
Okay. So page 21, counsel. Actually, 21 to 22. And what I'd ask you to do again is page 21, just read from line 4. And he had a term for you, a term of endearment, he called you boo?
No, sometimes.
Right. Well, only because it says that. So start reading at line 4 and on page 21, and I believe read the whole page on 22 to yourself. Get a chance to read that? So remember these questions and answers. Question. Detective Duggan. Hey, Boo, that's what he calls you? Answer, yeah. Question. So he says, hey, Boo, what? Answer, drop the car off to me. Question. Drop the car off to me? Answer, yeah, drop it to the complex, I mean the condo. Question, drop it off? Answer, I mean the corner. Question, at the corner store? Answer, yeah. Question, okay. And that's going to be sometime around 11 o'clock on Saturday night? Answer, uh-huh. Question, okay, do you do that? Answer, I drop it off. Question, you drop it off there? Answer, uh-huh. Question, okay, when you drop it off there, is he there? Question, answer, no. Question, he's not there? Answer, no. Question, you just dropped the car there? Answer, uh-huh. Question, now how do you get home? Answer, I walked home. Question, you walked home? Answer, uh-huh. Question, where do you leave? What do you do with the keys? Answer, I left it right there. Question. You left the keys there? Answer. Yeah. Question. Whereabouts do you leave the keys? Answer. Right there in the chair. Question. On the seat of the car? Answer. Yes. Question. So you just dropped the car off at this corner store. What's the name of the corner store? Answer. It's Country Market. Remember telling the police that?
It's there, yes.
I know.
Excuse me?
It's there, yes.
I could not hear that, Your Honor.
Is there, yes.
So on November 13th, you tell the police you dropped the car and Mr. Ingram is not there. Right? Right?
Yes,
That's a lie, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so tell the folks on the jury, you're lying that time to protect who? You? Mr. Ingram? Both? What are you trying to protect?
I was nervous, I was scared.
No, nervous and scared because you thought maybe you were going to jail because you were involved in this somehow? Or were you helping them somehow? Bringing guns? What were you scared about?
It was my first time ever being involved where police was around me and I just got nervous. I don't know what. The first thing was to just, I know I lied and I wasn't supposed to. I should have told the truth.
I know. But usually, well, right. If you're lying, there should be a reason you're lying. And again, this is 2 days later. This is not like they took you from the hotel and brought you to a police station and your head is spinning like, oh my God, what's happening, right? Because, right? It didn't happen right after you got picked up at the hotel. This day.
No, but I was still, again, I shouldn't have lied.
Okay, but just to set the scene though, the police, after Mr. Ingram got arrested at the hotel with you in the car, you were allowed to go home with your children, correct?
Yes,
You went home, slept at home with your children that night, that Sunday night, right? Correct?
yes.
And then they tell you, come back in, so now you've had rest, you've had a chance to digest this, you know what Mr. Ingram's accused of, and you go in and the police are telling you how serious this is, and you're still telling the jury you're lying, and you don't know why you're lying? Okay, so then, I think Mr. Stats asked you, so now you say that Mr. Ingram tells you to walk home in your nightgown and you showed them the route you took, correct? And then Mr. Stats asked you, so do you see anyone other than Mr. Ingram? And I think you just told this jury, yeah, I saw those two men get in the car, Mr. Forbes and Mr. Delancey. Isn't that what you told the jury earlier?
That's correct.
Now, in fact, did you ever make a statement different than that?
I don't know.
So what I'd ask you to do again is look at page, after this statement that you gave on November 13th, the police allowed you to go home, correct?
Yes,
And then they brought you back 2 days later on November 15th, correct?
so yes.
And on that date, again, it was Detective Duggan and now a second detective, Richard Lidden. Do you remember that? Two detectives questioning?
Yes.
Okay. And this is 3 days after, I'm sorry, 2 days after the first statement, and 3 days after you got stopped by the police. Page 22 to 26, counsel. Let me just let you read that for a moment. I'm sorry, page 21 through 26. I ask you to just read that to yourself. Page 21 of the statement from November 15th, starting at page, starting at line, starting at line 13, if you would read from line 13 on 21 to line 15 on 26. remember these questions and answers.
Judge, I'm going to object. This is refreshing memory. This is not impeachment.
It's definitely impeachment.
No, she said she didn't remember saying that. You refreshed the memory.
Well,
Don't get impeached then.
I asked her if she ever made a statement inconsistent.
Did you remember? And she said she did not remember.
That's what I recollect she said. So I asked her if she remembered.
You told Mr. Sachs that Mr. Ingram got you out of the car, he got in the driver's seat, and my client, Mr. Forbes, got in the back, and Mr. Delancey got in the back of the car, right? Just earlier to the jury, when Mr. Sachs was talking.
He got in the car, yes.
Right. You ever made a statement different than that? I showed you this, right? You want to see this again? So you remember this question and answer. Question.
This is totally improper. You can't refresh the witness
I'm not.
under that and then switch to impeachment because he wants to read 5 pages of a statement.
I'm going to have to refresh your memory on, Judge.
That's what you did previously. You refreshed her memory with her. Now the proper thing is to ask, is her memory refreshed?
Your Honor, this is, for impeachment, you process it as I show the witness the statement before I'm going to impeach you. That's correct.
But
And that's what I did. I was not refreshing her memory. I want to read it in now as an impeachment. That's the other statement.
The question was asked, Your Honor, does she remember making that statement? She said she doesn't remember. He then gives her the statement, and then does this refresh her memory? If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
No, this is impeachment, Your Honor. I asked her if she told the jury earlier that Mr. Forbes got in the back seat. In this statement, she says contrary.
Objection. I hate to say this, but Mr. Aronson is right. I mean, you
Danny, do me a favor, take the jury out. Hillary.
That's a real story.
Your Honor, there are two different things. There is refreshing memory.
No, I hear what you're saying.
I didn't know if you saw what she said.
Not yet.
You want me to proceed or you look these things up and I'll tell you those.
Where do you think I am?
Earhart's. Where we all live now.
Yeah, right.
Here?
Yeah.
Where am I starting, line 12, Helen?
I think, yeah, where he said the one guy got.
Hey, take a walk. You leave with me.
Yeah, it's premature.
agree with
Just in get some water.
Okay.
Your Honor, I guess it's my objection.
Well, I was going to get some water.
Well, I've never had any problems talking with an empty chair, so usually I win better that way.
What are you, Clint Eastwood now?
Very good, well done. Very good.
He just made my day.
Touche.
I'm going to permit you to do it.
Well, Your Honor, before you make that final ruling,
Oh, I thought you did argue.
I did, but what Mr. Moldoff is trying to get from the witness is the fact that she made a statement, or there's a line or two in there in which she says, I couldn't see their faces, or I don't know who they were. You don't need to read 5 pages to
Well,
get.
you only need to read the pertinent part. That's based upon the question that he asked.
Right, but he wants to start on page 21, go to 26, you could limit it to 4 or 5 lines to get that.
No, there is no 4 or 5 lines, that's the problem, because
The question is, did you ever make
you
it?
can't tell me how to cross-examine my witness.
I can tell you how to impeach when you're doing it wrong.
Excuse me, counsel. I'm trying to impeach her, if you look at it, it's
I
gradual.
read it.
Right, so it's gradual, where we started at line 13, she says I didn't see the face of the other two, but then he says, you knew the other 2 guys got in the back of the car. She says, because they were the ones with the apartment. And then, on 22, they just talk about it, they're the ones you identified as being in the video or whatever, but then on 23, they say, he says, nothing to do with that happened, listen to me, her answer. If I look at this, I can't see faces really. And then she says, what I'm trying to tell you, Devon pulled me out, I didn't glance at the other 2 people. That's on 23 and 24. I only know 2 other boys came to the car. So when she says that on the bottom of 23, he says, okay, her answer. And what I'm trying to tell you is, when Devon pulled me out, I didn't glance at the other 2 people. How do I not get to read that? But you tell me I have to start and stop, and start and stop when and he says, no. And Lyndon says, that's not what you told. And Douglas says, not 2 other boys. And she says, well, what I'm saying is the person that Devon hangs out with are the 2.
No, start over with her, she says.
Well, what I'm saying is the person that Devon hangs out with are the 2 boys that's at the apartment. So how do I not get to read all that? Because she's protesting, saying, yeah, I'm telling you, I know that he has those 2 guys at the apartment, but honestly didn't see them get in the car. That's,
Did I say that?
no, but
That's his objection. I understand.
And may I?
Of course.
The bottom line, the question was, did she ever make a different statement? Actually, the question was, does she remember making a different statement as far as that she saw the two boys get in the car and identified them? Simply to answer that is page 25, question, line 6, sort of line 3. Detective Lippman, okay, the night you got pulled out of the car, Devon got in the car with his 2 friends. Miss Watts, okay, when he pulled me out of the car. Detective Lippman, you saw the 2 people that got in the back of the black car. Miss Watts, I glanced at, yeah, one of them I seen in a red shirt. I didn't see faces. What else do you need more than that? You don't need 5 pages of a transcript. That answers the question.
Well, but my objection is that's not just the answer. It's a continuum where she says it over and over again, and they keep bringing her back to it. So why do I have to say it in a vacuum like that's the only thing she said? That's not.
Because he's impeaching as to just one thing. Was she able to see who got in the car? And that answers it,
Well,
not 5 pages.
No, but so does 23, where he goes back to her and she says, okay, what I'm trying to tell you is, when Devon pulled me out, I didn't glance at the other two people. And
So either
Right.
one.
No, not either. How? I don't choose to take either one. This is an important case, and if she's saying it for 2 or 3 pages, I should get to, that's what the detectives are doing. The detectives are
I know, I read it.
coaching her, and she's resisting. I get to show the witness. That's how we get here is by position. My defense in this case is, we wouldn't be here with her just getting up and glibly answering Mr. Satz with the answers he wants, if this isn't a result of the police beginning by telling her, this is what we want you to say.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
I already ruled,
I know.
and all you can do is talk me out of
No,
it.
okay. Well, I
And
can,
you get, I know, I was only kidding with that one, and you can deal with it on your cross if you're crossing her. And your objection is duly noted. All right, Danny, come on, let's. All right, turn it back to you.
so, remember this question and answer, this line 13, Detective Duggan. Okay, which
Remember,
one?
you have to talk slow.
Which one of these 2 guys then would that be that guy? Answer. It will be the one in the red. Question. In the red, Libby. These are the same 2 people you saw get in the car when Devon pulled you out, correct? Answer. They were the 2 people, Libby. When you said, Ms. Watts, I didn't see the face of the other 2. Libby. You said you, Watts. I only know Devon. Libby. You said you knew the 2 guys that got in the back of the car. Watts. Okay, because they were the one with the apartments. Libby. The people that were in the apartment, live in the apartment, the same 2 people that got in the back of the black Marquis when Devon pulled you out. Watts. Yes, I believe that they are. Libby. Okay, and are those 2 people the same 2 people that are in those 2 lineups? Answer. That's correct, sir. Libby.
In those 2 what?
Are those 2 people the same people that are in those 2 lineups? Watts. That's correct, sir. Libby. Okay, and those people in those lineups are the same, at least one of them has the same clothing as the person who got in the black car, is that correct? Answer, yes. Libby. At least one of those people from that lineup that you've identified is the same person that was wearing that red shirt when they got in the back of your black car. Answer, yes. Libby. All right. I don't want, that's you telling me. I'm not putting words in your mouth. You see the red, the picture of the shirt there? You see the picture in the lineup, and you know the guys from the apartment. Is the guy in the red shirt in that video picture, is that all the same one person? Is this guy here in the red shirt Duggan? Is this guy the same guy who's inside you rent the apartment to? Watts. I mean, if you're asking me, Duggan. This is my question to you. Watts. I'm explaining. Duggan. Is this guy the same guy who you rent, who lives in your apartment in 205? Watts. Yes. Now that I know what happened, yes. That looks like Libby. Nothing to do with what happened. Duggan. Listen to me. Watts. If I look at this, I can't see faces really. But I do know that a red person in a red shirt came to the, what you call it, inside the car. Duggan. Okay. Watts. What I'm trying to tell you is, when Devon pulled me out, I didn't glance at the other 2 people. I only know 2 other boys came to the car when I sat there. Duggan. No, Libby. No, that's not what you told me. Duggan. Not 2 other boys. Watts. Well, what I'm saying is, the person that Devon hangs out with are the 2 boys that's at the apartment. Libby. Let's start over, okay? Watts. Okay. Libby. Because you're backtracking. Listen to me, okay? The 2 boys that live with Devon in apartment 205. Watts. Yeah. Libby. You know them as fools, right? Watts. Yeah. Libby. Fool. They got the same nickname, right? Watts. Yes. Libby. Those 2 people that you picked, those 2 lineups right there, are those the same 2 people that you know as fool that lives in apartment 205? Watts. Yeah. Libby. Okay, the night you got pulled out of the car, Devon got in the car with his two friends. What? Okay, when he pulled me out of the car, living, you saw the two people that got in the back of the black car. What? I glanced at, yeah, one of them I seen in a red shirt. I didn't see faces. Living, the person in the red shirt. What? That's what I'm living. Do you see him in the lineup, in one of those lineups? What? Yes. Living, no. Those lineups over there, the two lineups that Timmy showed you. What? Would be that one. Living. So that person right there, Doug. The guy, which guy got in the back seat of your Grand Marquis the other day? Watts, that would be number 1 and number 2. Okay, that, Doug, okay, that's not hard, right? You remember those questions and answers?
Can't remember. It was already there.
I know. And that was on November 15th. Right, November 15th. You're telling the police, I didn't see the two people, right? Do you remember saying that? I didn't see their faces.
I didn't remember exactly what I was saying.
Yeah, I know. Do you remember the police telling you those things though? Like saying, let's start over and try to see it. And you persisted by saying, look, I didn't see their faces. Do you remember that?
By the time they asked me who it was, I remember saying who I seen. But I can't remember back in 2006.
But today in 2017, you come in the room, Mr. Satz asks you who gets in the car, and you just say Ingram, Delancey, and Forbes. Like you remember it, right?
You know, after I made my last statement showing that I was telling the truth, they said who it is that everybody was.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay. So now I think you said that. So after that happens, you go back to your home. You show us how you walk back in your nightgown, correct? And you went back and I think you said you went to sleep maybe, and then you got some calls from Mr. Ingram again, correct?
That's correct.
And one of those calls was telling you to go to the apartment 205 and pick up a package, correct?
That's correct.
And when he told you that, you said, well, I don't have a car. And he says, well, Gary will pick you up, your next door neighbor. And sure enough, Gary comes to take you, correct?
Correct.
And you said when you went to the apartment, you get stopped by police officers, and they tell you, we're looking for bad people. Someone shot a police officer, and you realize at that time how serious things are now, correct? Right, and this is a police officer got shot nearby the apartment you're going to, right? And you call Mr. Ingram and say, because your mind's now thinking, does this have something to do with the police officer getting shot, right? And you're saying, Mr. Ingram, you call him and say, Mr. Ingram, is there something I should know before I go in that apartment, right? And he says, nothing, right? Nothing you need to know. And isn't that the time you're supposed to say to Mr. Ingram, you know what? If you can't tell me why I'm going here with all these police, then I'm not helping you. Isn't that the time you should have said that?
Should have, yes.
Well, you should have if you weren't helping him, but you were in love with him, correct?
Yes.
He's the father of your child, right?
Yes.
And you're going to help him out of this jam he was in, no matter what he did. Isn't that correct?
Not if I knew the truth, though.
And certainly at that point in time, you know, a police officer's been shot, and they're looking for the people that shot the police officer, correct?
That is correct.
Now, according to you, you go in the apartment, and you take out this package, as you described it, right?
That's correct.
The package was actually a clear plastic baggie, like a sandwich baggie, correct?
It was a Ziploc bag, I guess.
Yeah. like these exhibits, right? Like I'm showing the jury 230, 229, and 228. You see these? Right? They're in a clear plastic baggie, correct?
That's correct.
And we can see what they are. They're passports, right?
Yes.
And they were in a clear plastic baggie that night?
Not theirs, no. That night was two of them with tissue paper all around it. So you didn't know what it was.
You couldn't shake the bag and see what's in there before you go out and make sure I'm not taking something I shouldn't be taking with a police officer shot? You don't check it to see what you're taking now?
That wasn't one question. After I talked to the bond and told him if there's something that I need to know before walking in, once he told me no, I just picked up the package.
I know. That's the point. You didn't think, maybe I should see what I'm taking out of here before I go passing by police officers again?
I didn't believe that he would put me into something like that.
So you put those passports in your purse or the bag? In your purse, correct?
Yes, it was in my hand.
And you take them back to your house. Gary takes you back to your house, correct?
That's correct.
And then when you get to your house, at least you know now I've got the two passports for Mr. Ingram and Mr. Delancey, correct?
I didn't look at it until the next day.
Okay, whenever, the next day.
Yes.
But then later, Mr. Ingram calls you and says, I want you to go bring Keisha's gonna come out and she's gonna take you to go get the car, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And when he told you, he told you that it was Keisha Florinor who was going to pick you up, correct?
Yes,
And you knew who that was, correct?
that's correct.
You knew her because he had introduced her as a friend of his, correct?
Yes,
And you had met her before, correct?
that's correct.
So you told Mr. Satz that it was Keisha that then picked you up and took you to get the marquee, correct?
That's correct.
Ever make a statement different from that?
Yes, I did.
When was that?
At the beginning,
Yeah. Do you remember what you told the police?
I said different people names.
Let me refresh your memory. Page 28. That's the statement again of November 13.
November 13th or 15th.
Wait a minute, sorry. Give me a moment. 13, page 28. If you would, see if we can refresh your memory now with the name you gave the police for who picked you up.
Page 28, if you read question at line 8, and your answer goes down to line 21.
Okay, so does that refresh your memory who, on November 13th, who you told the police came and picked you up?
Yes,
Who'd you tell them?
Simone.
Simone. And when you said Simone picked me up, you just made that name out of the air? You just invented that person, or is that a real person?
It's not a real person.
Not a real person, okay. So again, for the folks on the jury now, on November 13th, why would, is it serious? You know who picked you up? It's Keisha. Why are you making up a name and giving them some phony name?
I was nervous, scared.
Scared of what? Scared of you being involved, like you've done something wrong? Did you have some participation in this?
Knowing what I have done and just everything I didn't know about people. I don't know what happened at that time. I was just nervous. My first reaction was a lying. And again, I do apologize.
Well, I'm not asking you to apologize, Ms. Watson. I'm just asking you to tell the jury, are you trying to protect Keisha at that point also? Because, you know, she's involved. You don't want her to get questioned. What was your motive?
At that time, I just wanted everything just, I don't know.
And then you remember they asked you, what was right there? You made up the name Simone, correct?
That's correct.
And you had, it was really Keisha, and you had talked to Keisha before, correct?
Talked to her
You had talked to Keisha before that night.
when she came to the house.
Yes. But the police asked you if you ever talked to that person before, and you said, well, you remember making a statement different than that. You hadn't talked to the person that picked you up before. No, you hadn't talked to Simone before. You remember telling them that?
No, I just said her name as Simone.
Okay. Page 30, Ken. The question is on line 4, and the answer is on line 8. Just read that to yourself and see if that refreshes your memory. Okay. So, do you remember them asking, did you ever talk to Simone before? And you say, no, right?
Before I know of her, yes.
Right, you say Simone's the one who took me, and they say, did you ever talk to Simone before? You say, never talked to her before, correct?
That's correct.
So you're not just creating a name, but you're creating this whole fictional person, and I've never talked to her, and some lady called me out of the blue, Simone, and I'm just taking a ride there to go pick up a car, right?
And she never had my telephone number, and Keisha, me and her never talked on the phone.
No, they didn't ask you if you talked on the phone. They said, have you ever talked to her before? Okay, and then, Mr. Sachs asked you if after that car was picked up, or after you were, you took the ride, or Keisha took you to get the car, and you went home with the car, Mr. Sachs asked you if you ever talked to him at the Ingram again, and you told him yes, you have, and he called you later, correct? So did you ever make a statement different than that in this statement, that you never talked to him again?
Don't recall.
Okay. Page 33, Ken. Page 33, I'd ask you to look at, well, the question is line 9, and the answer goes to line, your answer at line 18. Remember that? So Doug asks you, okay, so now you pick up the car at this place, Watts, Question, not able to get a hold of Devon? Answer, no. Question, okay, when's the next time you hear from Devon? Answer, I don't hear from Devon. I hear from some girl who called me. Right? And then you tell the police that person who called you is Keisha, correct? So you sort of drop Keisha into this statement now. And again, you say you've never seen Keisha before, correct, to the police in that statement?
I did see her before.
I know, you told you were making a statement differently. The next page, page 34. Let me show you 33 so you're having in context. Bottom of 33, question at line 19, and the answer is on page 34, line 5. You just read those to yourself. Remember these questions and answers. Question, okay, what is her name again? Answer, Kashika Duggan. Kashika Watts, something like that. And she says Devon is going to be at this place. Question, and she tells you Devon is going to be where? Watts, at the hotel. Question.
Wait,
So now, have you ever spoken to this girl before? Answer, no, I don't know her. Question, never? Ever spoken to her on the phone? Don't know who she is? Watts, don't know. You were saying that?
Don't recall.
Okay. And now, what happens is you get picked up, taken to your car, you go back home. But when you get picked up by Keisha, when Keisha comes to your house, doesn't Keisha tell you something about look on the news?
I'm going to object to anything that Keisha says is hearsay.
Don't you look at the news when Keisha comes over? Don't you look at the TV? And on the TV, do you see the news?
Yes,
And on the news, it talks about the police officer being shot at the apartment complex you lived at, or you leased at, correct?
I didn't see the apartment, no, but I see the police.
Well, you'd already been to the apartment, so you already know it's your apartment,
Yes.
right? And you see what a big commotion it is, headline news, right?
Yes,
And don't you realize at that moment, this involves the bomb?
Objection, Your Honor, that'd be speculation.
That's just,
Didn't you realize, didn't you know at that moment, this involves the bomb? The bomb?
Exact same question.
yeah, just phrased a different way. See if you can rephrase it.
Were you aware at that point, looking at the news, with Keisha there, were you aware that this shooting involved your boyfriend?
That'd be speculation.
Not.
Not, no. Go ahead, you can answer that.
in my mind, yes.
Yes, right? So now, in this statement at this point, after you've told the detectives all that, there comes a time, you remember the detectives telling you again, don't.
Objection, Your Honor. He's got to ask a question before he attempts any kind of refreshment or impeachment.
Okay, I'll ask her. Do you remember if you were told that they leased you a line, the police, in that statement?
Objection, Your Honor. It's the same objection.
No, sustained.
Okay. You told the jury earlier that you went to the apartment because Devon asked you to, and he told you to pick up the package which turned out to be the passport, correct?
That's correct.
You were asked, oh, sorry, you told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that you knew you had the passports and then you were surprised to find them in your bag later on, correct?
Yes,
Because you gave them to Devon at the hotel, correct?
that's correct.
So, after you get home and now Devon calls you and tells you to bring him some things, what was it he told you to bring?
He told me to bring some house clothes. And so I go into shorts. I wasn't sure if it was 2 pairs or it was a shirt and a pair, shorts.
All right, and that's not all you brought him though, right? You knew in your bag also you had the passports, correct?
That's correct.
And you took those passports, not only the 2 he asked for, but like you said, you went in your house after you saw those passports and were looking for Mr. Ingram's passport, right?
That's correct.
And you did that because in your mind, you realized Mr. Ingram was in trouble and you were going to help Mr. Ingram get himself out of this trouble by bringing in his passport.
I object, Your Honor. Statement that she realized she does not know what's going on. That's all supposition,
Rephrase it.
speculation.
Rephrase it.
Well, didn't you bring him that passport so he could use it?
I just seen 2 passports and I just added his with it.
I know. And when you brought him his passport, the only reason he needs a passport is to leave the country, correct?
I didn't know.
So I'm saying, your idea was to bring him the passport so that he could use it, correct?
I don't know why I did it. I seen 2 passports and I just added his. You know, it sounds
What?
it sounds crazy, but
Sounds crazy. You're right, it does sound crazy. Ingram asks for 2 passports. And Sonia brings 3. Right? Right?
yes.
And you don't know why you did that. Right? You don't know why you're giving him a passport. Tell the folks on the jury, what else could he do with that passport other than leave the country? Now, when you got there, when you got to that hotel, in fact, Mr. Delancey was in the room with you and Mr. Ingram and your children, and Mr. Ford was in the shower. It wasn't just in the bathroom, you heard him in the shower, correct?
Not the shower in the bathroom.
If I can just have a moment. Page 10, this is November 15th, page 108 to 109.
What state was that?
November 15th, page 108 to 109. You referred to these, Mr. Forbes, when you were giving these statements, you didn't really know my client's name, Mr. Forbes, right? You called them by fool or taller one and the shorter one, you remember that?
Yes,
And who was the shorter one, Mr. Forbes, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. So let me show you page 108 and 109, if you could just see if this refreshes your memory. If you could start, the question I'm asking about starts with line 21 on page 108 and goes to line 4 on page 109. If you just read that to yourself, see if that refreshes your memory about where Mr. Forbes was when you were in the hotel room. That refresh your memory?
No. He was was in the bathroom.
Right. And do you know where he went? What he's doing in the bathroom? Does that refresh your memory what you said about what he's doing in the bathroom?
Took his
What did you say?
shower.
Right. Right, so I'm saying, when you got in the hotel room, the shorter one, who's Mr. Ford, you told police was taking a shower, correct?
Objection, that's not what it says.
That's not
I'll
what
be
it says.
glad to read it. I'll be glad to read it. Question. Well, what happened to the other two guys? If Devon is next to you, answer, they're just sitting there. Question. Who went to the bathroom? Answer. The shorter one was in the bathroom. He was, I guess, doing something first with the door open, and then he went in to take a shower later on, a little bit later, like probably about 5 minutes after. Remember that?
I remember saying it, the yes was there.
Okay, all right. And now, as you told Mr. Satz earlier, at that point, the two other men leave. Mr. Delancey and Mr. Ingram leave and are gone for a while and then come back, right?
That's correct.
And you recall Mr. Ingram heard some choppers or helicopters or something?
Objection, how would you know what Mr. Ingram had heard?
Did he say something to you about it?
No, not that I remember.
And then they come back, and according to you, Mr. Ingram sort of takes you aside and whispers to you, tell them or tell something that I've got to go with you, correct? And so then you say, hey, I've got to take Kiki to school or home so she can go to school. Why don't you come with me? In response to him asking you to do that, correct? And when you did that, and Mr. Ingram left with you and got in the car with you, according to your testimony, you didn't realize after you had given him the passports, he had put them back in your purse?
Objection, there's no testimony that he put him back in the purse. That's not an evidence.
All right, well, let's establish this then. When you got to the hotel room, you gave Mr. Ingram the bag with the 3 passports, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then after you left and got home, and the next day looked in your bag, lo and behold, those passports are in your bag, correct?
Correct.
You didn't put them there according to you, correct?
Yes.
You did not put them there. And you never told my client, hey, you know, I've got your passport. You never told him that, did you?
No.
And I assume you never told Mr. Delancey either, hey, I've got your passport, right? You never told him that.
No.
Right. So you give them Mr. Ingram, you never tell those 2 gentlemen that you have their passport, and the next day they're back in your bag. You thought Mr. Ingram put them in your, that's what you figured, he must have put them back in my bag,
Objection,
right?
speculation.
That's speculation. Right? You thought Mr. Ingram must have put them in my bag without telling me, right?
Yes.
And then Mr. Ingram gets in the car with you, and you're driving away, and Mr. Ingram's never coming back to that room, right?
I mean, to my knowledge, I know he was going to tell me what he needed to tell me, I guess.
Right. And you thought he's never going back to that room.
I needed to know first what was happening.
Right?
I couldn't tell you what he was going to return back. I just needed that answer on what's happening.
Let me see if I can refresh your memory. You remember giving us a deposition in this case? You were coming in for a deposition, January 13, 2012, page 88, counsel.
Yes.
Bottom of page 88, and we'll go over the top of page 89. Ask you to, in your deposition, read line 17, question, and then if you would, I'm sorry, the answer on 89 to line 8.
line 17 and 88, line 8 and 89. Read for yourself.
That's not my phone.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes.
Right. You thought he was never going back there, right?
Yes.
Right. Your thought is, we're in the car, we're leaving, and the last time he's ever going to see them, left him there, correct?
From my thoughts,
Right. Now, you brought the bag to the motel, and according to you, you just brought clothes and the passport, right?
that's correct.
You didn't bring any guns.
No.
But you brought a bag with you, correct?
That's correct.
And what kind of bag was that?
A little bit of the plastic item.
And just one other thing. Apartment that you had been at, 205, when you had visited, when Devon and you were living still at your house, you said Mr. Delancey lived in the master bedroom and Devon lived in the back bedroom, as you call it, correct?
No.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ingram. I'm sorry, Mr. Ford lived in the back bedroom and Mr. Delancey lived in the master bedroom, correct? I'm sorry, that was confused. And certainly the master bedroom is larger, correct? Nicer bedroom, that's why you stayed there?
That's correct.
And the back bedroom was sort of not well decorated, wasn't as nice, correct?
When the master bedroom had a bathroom to go with it.
Exactly. Okay, so when you give all these statements, Ms. Watts, and we've shown that you admit you lied to the police, correct? You lied on November 13th, you lied again, correct?
That's correct.
And then eventually you come down and talk to the state attorneys, correct? Mr. Marcus, Mr. Satz, investigators, whoever, right?
That's correct.
And you give them a statement, correct?
Yes.
And then following that, you get arrested for accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree, correct?
Oh, yes.
And that was in 2010, correct?
Probation, yes.
Yeah, you pled guilty in 2010, right?
That's correct.
And you understand when the state leveled that charge against you, that the maximum punishment you were facing for that crime was 26 years in prison, correct?
Yes.
They explained all that to you, correct?
Yes.
And they told you, but if you tell the truth, we'll give you probation, correct?
That's correct.
And that's what happened. You pled in 2010. Well, instead of getting 26 years in prison, or a year in prison, or a day in prison, you got 5 years probation, correct?
That's correct.
for accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree, lying to the police, misleading them, all the things you did, you wind up with 5 years probation, correct?
Yes.
And the person that decides whether you're telling the truth, the only person that decides is the state attorney, correct?
Correct.
And I have nothing further.
Any of you guys need a break? Danny?
Lumping it off on us.
And she added it in the deposition, not in the original statements.
Doesn't matter when she said it, this is what she's going to testify to.
Why didn't impeach her with that?
I don't care what you impeached her with, that is part and parcel of the statement. She's
Well, no,
going
but I
to
didn't
say
show
that.
her, I didn't show her that statement. You're saying, I didn't show her that one, that's what she said. Right, I just asked her if she said no, and she said yeah.
I don't care what you got it from, the bottom line of it is
No.
that's not the full extent of the conversation.
But the doctrine of completeness is that I'm reading from the depot, I didn't read from that depot.
No, it's not a conversation.
Absolutely is, it absolutely is not. The doctrine of completeness is, if I read from a document and I leave out a portion of it, he has the right to bring the rest in. I didn't read from that depot, I just simply had her agree. Remember, it wasn't even an impeachment, I said, you said, I have anything to worry about, he said no, right.
The doctrine of completion also goes to oral statements.
No, but
And
that,
it's a statement that she testified to, that as to what he said, and the doctrine of completeness would be, what's the total extent of the conversation?
no, and that's not like some sworn statement she gave to the police, it's a statement she gave in 2012 in the depot.
Well, that's sworn to, you know.
I'm saying, but it's not something that she said immediately after the event, it's like 6 years later.
All right, end the conversation, it's good from there, I'm going to allow it.
Thank you.
And your renewed motions for mistrial, your renewed motions for severance with regard to Mr. Forbes and Mrs. Delancey are still denied.
Then I would ask that he be strictly over our objections coming in, please.
Only that one line,
That's
correct?
right. Okay.
Nothing more.
Not
Nothing more.
expanding or
Nope.
extrapolating on it.
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah, I need the witness, please.
Did you want something else? Did you need something? Yes.
Exactly.
Andy can hear you.
Oh, it works fine.
Hello?
You want to do a testing, 1, 2, 3? Ms. Watts, I'd like to clear up some things that you just testified about. When you went to apartment 205, and I may get back to this a little later, but when you went to apartment 205, and you was first stopped by police on the way there, correct? And we're talking about, you went over to pick up a package.
Correct.
Right, and you walked up the stairs, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Gale parked the car on the grass across the street from the apartment.
Yes.
Right. And when you went upstairs and you got to the door, you called Devon as you called,
That's correct.
right? And you testified, I believe, to Mr. Moldoff that you asked him if there was anything that, well, what did you ask him?
Is there anything that I need to know before coming in the door?
And you testified that that he said no, but that's not completely what he said. He said no, it has nothing to do with me, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Let me show you some things. By the way, does Devon eat meat?
Yes.
He does?
Which Devon? I'm sorry.
Mr. Ingraham?
No.
He does. He does not eat meat. Okay. So when you went to apartment 205, a little high. Can you see these two things? You see two things on the bottom right?
Yes.
Okay. Those aren't things that, pieces of meat that Mr. Ingraham would eat, correct?
No.
By the way, I was showing exhibit 227. Now, the vehicle that you and Mr. Ingraham had, you had a Cadillac and you had a Marquis, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in the black Marquis was found this pawn slip. Can you see the address on it? See that 1065 Northwest 38th Place, Sunrise? See that there?
Yes.
Okay, that's the home that you and he shared, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, did you ever see this pawn slip before?
No.
Okay, so if it was taken from the Marquis, then this would be something that Mr. Ingraham did, correct?
Yes.
By the way, you don't have any relationship with Mr. Ingraham right now, do you?
No.
You haven't talked to him in basically 10 years.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Moldoff brought up something about you bringing guns to the hotel, the motel.
Yes.
Did you bring guns to the motel?
No.
Did you take any guns and put them underneath a mattress in the motel?
No.
Did you ever go into the bathroom at the motel?
No.
So you could not have put guns in the toilet tank in the motel?
No.
And who was the only person while you were there that was in the bathroom in the motel?
Mr. Ford?
Mr. Forbes. You didn't see Mr. Delancey in the bathroom, correct?
No.
You didn't see Mr. Ingraham, correct?
No.
Only Mr. Forbes.
Correct.
Okay. Now, instead of just jumping around, which I seem to be doing, somebody like that. You and Mr. Ingraham lived at 11065 Northwest 38th Place.
That's correct.
Okay. Well-furnished house,
Correct.
very comfortable.
Correct.
Not like the way apartment 205 is kept. Fair state?
Oh, yes.
And you live there with your son, Mr. Ingraham, that's his son also, correct?
That's correct.
And at times your daughter would come visit.
That's correct.
Now, while you were living there with Mr. Ingraham, you said that his mother would send him money, correct?
Correct.
And it was her, really was her townhouse.
That's correct.
But Mr. Ingraham also worked, correct?
Yes, you did.
He worked assembling bicycles
Yes.
for Sports Authority, I think it was.
One of the companies.
He worked building scaffolding.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as apartment 205 goes, you acknowledge that you rented the apartment.
Yes.
And at first you thought it was for you and Devon Senior and your son to move into.
That's correct.
But there came a time when, during the process, that he told you actually the reason why he wanted you to rent the apartment was he didn't want Mr. Delancey, Mr. Forbes, to be living with the three of you anymore, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you were willing to put the apartment in your name, correct?
Not willing, but I ended up doing it, yes.
Okay, you did it. And as far as those other bills and things like that, you have no knowledge of how your name got on those bills.
That is correct.
Okay. When Mr. Forbes and Mr. Delancey lived in the townhouse with you, you weren't home all the time, were you?
No.
Okay. So, and I'm sure you had personal documents there with addresses, phone numbers, and things like that dealing with your personal information.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as apartment 205, you went over there numerous times, didn't you?
Repeat the question, was there?
Before you ended up moving in there for a period of 2 weeks, correct?
Yes.
But before you moved in there for 2 weeks, you had gone over there numerous times, and even after those 2 weeks, you went over there other times, correct?
Went over to what, drop my son off? or-
Pick them up, drop them off.
Yes, but not to really sit down.
No,
Okay, yes.
Okay. And Mr. Forbes had the room by the front door,
That's correct.
and I think you've already testified that Mr. Delancey had the room, the master bedroom. I think you said that to Mr. Stats and maybe even to Mr. Williams, I'm not sure, but you testified to that,
Yes.
correct? And there came a time by the way, we saw a picture of your son, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay, that's a picture of him more recently than back then in 2006, isn't it?
Yes.
Back in 2006, was he even walking?
Yes.
Okay, which is like getting into the terrible tooth?
Yes.
Okay, so, but that obviously was an older person we saw in that picture, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you and Mr. Ingraham and your son, Devon Jr., move into the master bedroom.
Yes.
And you're there for a week to 2 weeks until the air conditioning gets fixed in the Sunrise townhouse.
That's correct.
And Mr. Delancey is nice enough to move into the spare bedroom with Mr. Forbes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the day of the shooting of the police officers is November 11th, 2006. You're aware of that.
Yes.
And earlier in that day, you went to work, and Mr. Ingraham was with Devon Jr.
That's correct.
And he also, did he had Kiki with him too?
That's correct.
And they were over at apartment 205.
Yes.
And you called him up and you let him know you were on your way to pick up the kids, right?
That's correct.
Now, there's a 27-minute call that it appears that you're on, and I think you went through this with Mr. Williams, that you're on the way, when you're talking to somebody on the way over to apartment 205.
That's correct.
Okay, who are you talking to?
A friend of mine,
What's his name?
Linford.
Linford what?
Fairlawn?
Linford Fairlawn.
Yes.
Okay, so you were on the phone for half an hour with this man, right up until the time you pulled into the parking lot and had Mr. Ingraham meet you downstairs with the children, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And he gave you the kids and some groceries,
That's
and you
correct.
went back to the townhouse. You went to the townhouse. And there came a time when you got a call from him, and I know the timing is confusing, and I'm not going to hold you to the exact times, because if I'm correct, you don't know the exact times, do you?
No.
Okay, and in fact, when Mr. Williams was going through the times with you, the bet he would say it would have to be this because of the time, but you really don't have a recollection of the exact times of what happened from when you got back home with the kids. You don't know whether things happened at 12 o'clock, 12:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. You don't have an exact sequence of times in your mind of when everything happened, correct?
I mean, by looking at the chart of the time, I would tell you the first call was such and such, but not that I know exactly the time if you ask me.
Okay, so I'm going to speak to you not about the exact times.
Okay.
I'm going to speak to you about the events.
Okay.
Okay? Now, so you got a call from Mr. Ingraham, and Mr. Moldoff pointed out that, you ended up going to the corner store,
Okay.
and because you wanted the Mercury Martini. And Mr. Moldoff pointed out that you gave a statement in which you said you left the car there, you didn't see anybody, and you left the keys on the seat, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Today you're saying that that's not correct, that in fact Mr. Ingraham came and took you by the arm, ushered you out of the door, and the three of them got in the car.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Ingraham that night there?
The corner store?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, but you did lie about that.
I did lie.
You did lie about that. And as far as who got in the car, you've given contradictory statements about that too, as to whether or not it was Mr. Delancey and Mr. Forbes or not, correct?
Correct.
You know who got in the car?
Yes.
Who got in the car?
The two gentlemen, Mr. Forbes and Mr. Delancey.
Okay. Now, you didn't see anything in Mr. Ingraham's hands, did you?
No.
Okay. And you saw the video that was played for you, right?
Yes.
And the video that was played for you had Mr. Ingraham running in a long pair of pants, white shirt, and something in his hands.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize what that stuff was? The pants, what was in his hands?
No.
Okay. You don't recall that that's what you saw him wearing when you saw him the next day at the motel?
No, he wasn't wearing that.
He wasn't wearing that. What was he wearing when you saw him at the motel?
Dickie?
The Dickies outfit.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you bring a Dickies outfit for him to the motel?
No.
Okay. So you pick up the kids are home with you, and you end up going to getting the call and you drop off the car. And today you're telling us that you actually saw Mr. Ingraham, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You also told us today that you were wearing a nightgown. You never said that to the police in 2006, did you?
Do you believe I did?
You believe you did. What was Mr. Ingraham wearing when you saw him at the corner store?
It's white pants and jeans, white shirt and jeans.
White shirt and jeans. He was wearing a white t-shirt.
That's correct.
Now, let's go into, you go over to apartment 205, we already discussed what happened when you were walking up the stairs. And you got to the door, you made the call, correct?
Yes.
And you went in there, and you picked up a package, a package in a plastic bag,
That's correct.
or a plastic bag package. And you don't know what's in it because it is covered with
Paper towel.
paper towel.
Mhm.
I think it's a tissue paper, same thing?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Moldoff asked you to shake it and what? You didn't do that, did you? You didn't know what was in it.
No,
You saw an Aladdin tape on the floor, which was your son's, so you picked it up.
that's correct.
And you brought it into the car with you and you drove home.
That's correct.
And you don't pay any attention to what's in that whatsoever until the next morning, correct?
That's correct.
Now, the next morning is when you look in the bag.
Yes.
And there are things that happen in between, and we'll go back to that. But the next morning, you look in the bag and you see 2 passports, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you look on the names and it's Mr. Delancey and Mr. Flores.
Yes, I didn't really read the names, but yes, I seen 2 passports in the faces.
Okay. And you took it upon yourself to add to this package Mr. Ingraham's passport.
Yes.
Did he ever ask you to do that?
No,
Did he tell you that he needed his passport?
no,
In any way, shape, or form, did he give you any instructions that led you to believe that he wanted you to put that passport with the other 2?
no,
Okay. So you did this on your own, correct?
correct.
Okay. And you didn't tell him that you had done it, did you? You never told him that.
No,
That's correct, right?
correct.
Now, this passport of Mr. Ingram's not kept in apartment 205, is it?
No,
It's kept, where was it kept?
11065.
In a dresser, in a nightstand drawer by the bed, right?
That's correct.
Now, there came a time when Keisha brings you to the car, correct?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't Simone, right?
No,
Okay. And when the 2 of you were talking, Mr. Moldoff asked you a question about in your mind that Devon was involved, correct? You remember answering that?
repeat again?
That at this time when you were with Keisha, you said, when he asked you a question, that in your mind you believed that Devon was involved with the shooting.
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that actually in your mind you thought all 3 of them were involved?
On something, yes.
Yes. So it wasn't just as Mr. Moldoff would have you say, just that Devon, it was that the boys were. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. But Mr. Ingraham never told you he was involved, correct?
No,
Never made a statement to you that he was involved, correct?
correct.
And so this was just your mind working and not based upon any facts that you knew, correct?
No facts from out of his mouth, no.
Right. Now, in the morning, you said to your parents' house at some time, correct?
Yes.
And when you drive to your parents' house and they're not home, it's a Sunday morning, but they're not home. Okay, and you don't go home right away, where do you go?
I either went to the store to pick up something for the kids,
And where else did you go?
and I back home.
Didn't you go over to Linford's?
No, once I was leaving the house before I got another phone call for Devon to meet me, for me to meet him.
Okay, so you go to your parents, they're not home, you go to the store, get some breakfast with the kids, you go home, and then before you go to the motel, you go down to see Linford Fearon.
Yes.
Okay, and that's the same person that you're on the phone with for half an hour when you leave work until you meet Mr. Ingraham at around 10 o'clock in the parking lot of apartment 205, or 10:30, whatever it was.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you eventually end up at the roadway inn, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And by this time, you've seen the 2 passports in the package, right?
Yes.
You've added a third passport of Mr. Ingraham's, even though he did not ask you to.
Correct.
You come into the hotel room, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Ingraham starts playing with the kids, right?
That's correct.
And before that, he gives you a big hug, right?
When we was outside, yes.
Yeah, he gives you a hug, and he had told you that he really wanted to see you, correct? And that's why you went there.
Well, he said that on the phone, yes.
Right. So you go there, he gives you a hug. Now, I'm sorry, like I said, I don't want to jump around, we're doing a great job. When you met Keisha earlier on, not only did she give you the keys to the Mercury Marquis, but she also gave you some money, right?
That's correct.
And she gave you $20.
Yes.
And that was from Mr. Ingraham for you, correct?
What she said, yes.
Right, because he wanted you to have some money, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, before you ask the next question, Janet, could you take your jury out for a minute?
This way, please.
Danny, we're good?
Yes.
Do you guys have any problem if we stay long enough to finish Ms. Watts?
No.
Thank you. And let's just start where we're at the motel. She said that Mr. Ingraham meets you outside and gives you a hug, correct?
Yes.
And the two of you go into the hotel room together with the kids, right?
That's correct.
The kids start eating potato chips that are in the hotel room,
That's correct.
and Mr. Ingraham is fooling around with it, playing with it, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you took out the passports,
Yes.
the package. You don't know, and you gave it to Mr. Ingraham.
That's correct.
You never saw him look into the package, did you?
I don't recall.
Right. You don't know whether he knew what you were giving him at the time, right?
No.
Okay. And as far as those passports, getting back into your purse or package, whatever, bag, whatever it is. Now, Mr. Moldoff went into, you didn't put it back in there, correct?
No, I didn't put it back in.
Okay. But your daughter was there, correct?
Correct.
You don't know if she put it back in there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how it got back into your bag to this moment is a mystery to you, correct?
Well, I gave it to Lon, so if anybody put it back, it would be him.
Well, didn't you just tell me right now that in fact you don't know whether your daughter put it back?
Objection, argument.
Isn't it possible that your daughter
I
did?
mean, it could be possible, yes.
Okay. In fact, you've made statements like that in the past, correct?
Okay.
Okay. Now, did Mr. Ingraham and Mr. Delancey leave the hotel room before or after you gave the passports? And when I say password, let's just say the package, because as you said, you don't know if he knew what was in it.
I believe I gave it to him before.
Okay, so when he and Mr. Delancey left, did he take the passports with him?
I don't recall that.
Okay, so they could have been lying there without Mr. Delancey and without Mr. Ingraham being there, just with you and the kids, correct?
It could have been.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ingraham said to you, said to Mr. Delancey, he said to you, I need the keys to the car, right?
Yes, I got the keys.
And he said that Mr. Delancey and he, whatever name he used for Mr. Delancey, but the two of them were going to go to the store, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me all the things that they brought back from the store.
Nothing.
They brought nothing back from the store, did they?
No.
So what they did was they got in the car to be alone for 5 to 10 minutes, correct?
Objection, speculation. Oh, that's just
They were alone together for 5 to 10 minutes, correct?
Objection, speculation.
I should already testified with respect to that. Go on.
Correct.
They left out, yes.
And it's overruled.
And whether Mr. Ingraham said he was going to the store, you never saw any products of that shopping. There was none, correct?
Correct.
Now, after he comes back with Mr. Delancey, he whispers to you something to the effect of, say that I need to go with you with Kiki, correct?
Yes.
And you then say, the line, Devon, whatever you call him, I need to take Kiki to school or to get something for school. Are you coming with me? Correct?
Yes.
And he says, yeah, I'm going to come, and he announces, I'm going with Sonia and the kids. Correct?
He ended up coming, yes.
Right. And you told Mr. Moldoff that you knew at the time that he said that he had no intentions of coming back. Correct?
Objection, facts not in evidence.
You told Mr. Moldoff that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No questions.
You're excused.
Okay, remember that tomorrow we're